All right, we did it. Ryzen 9 7900X with an RTX 4090. Alright, so since the 7000 series came out and the 4090 came out, I'm getting a lot of people messaging me saying they just want to see a PC with those parts built in there, and there's a few reasons why. Obviously the 4090 is a monster and they all look completely different to the 30 series graphics cards, but they also have a different connector on there. And the question is always like, can we still use Lian Li Strimer cables on there? Will it still look good? So the 3090 Ti came out a few months ago, and that thing used a weird 12-pin to triple PCI Express power cable. And we made a video for Mark and we showed his PC with the 3090 Ti and that weird cable and how we made it look nice with the Strimers kind of folded over. And the 4090 we've got here for Felix is the same kind of situation, but it takes 4 PCI Express power cables plugged into one 12-pin. So we've done our best to make it look really nice. I still think it looks really cool. I'm sure one day there'll be a cable that comes out that we can clip onto the Strimers to make it look even neater, but I want to show you this PC because it's got a Ryzen 9 7900X processor with an RTX 4090 24 gig, and we've gone with my current favorite 4090, which is this thing. It's a ZOTAC 4090 AMP Extreme Aero, I think it is. AMP Extreme Aero, yep. So it's a 24 gig monster, it's huge, and it looks like a Halo spaceship, so we'll show you that in a sec. The rest of this PC is really cool too, and this is what I would go for if productivity and gaming is your goal. Now I'm sure while I'm talking, Jeremy's going to throw some cinematics on the screen and show you how this thing looks from different angles, but I've just got to mention the graphics card before we even talk about what's actually in this. This 4090 is the ZOTAC Aero Extreme, AMP Aero Extreme or something. It's just like a big spaceship. I reckon it looks like someone that designed the Halo spaceships designed this thing as well. It's got like a little ledge here with some RGB on it. And the reason I like this one so much is because out of all the 4090 designs, I think ZOTAC really did the RGB properly. Some of the other ones look a little bit too out there. This is definitely out there, but it looks clean. I really like the design. They've got some nice little ridges along the top of the graphics card here. They've really put some thought into how this one looks. So let's talk about the specs anyway. This one's got a Ryzen 9 7900X processor, and it's obviously cooled by, yet again, the Z73 Kraken cooler, so you get that nice LCD display there. The fans, though, that are connected to that are the Infinity fans, and I'll talk more about those in a second. The graphics card is, yet again, the RTX 4090, made by ZOTAC. This edition is the AMP Extreme Aero, and I think it's the Aero version that gives you these RGBs. So the RAM itself is 32 gig Corsair Dominator, 5600 megahertz CL36. The motherboard is obviously an X670E, and it's the Gigabyte Aorus Elite AX. So you get AX6 Wi-Fi, Bluetooth 5, it's obviously DDR5 because we've got the DDR5 Corsair RAM. The X670E has a few extra lanes on the motherboard for extra fast SSDs. And speaking of SSDs, we've got a 2TB Corsair MP600 core in this one. That's good for 5000 megs per second. It's a Gen 4 PCI Express. Pretty much nobody's going to need more speed than that. There's a lot of people that like to brag about their SSD, so they get the 7400 megahertz like Samsung 990 Pro or something, but in general you're going to use like 3,000 or 4,000 megs at max. And that thing is a monster of a SSD for workload or gaming or anything you want to do. It's going to handle it. If you're doing extreme 4K editing, then maybe get a 980 or a 990 Pro or something from Kingston. Even Seagate, they make some really nice fast SSDs. The power supply to power this monster is a 1000 watt MSI gold rated ATX power supply. So the 1000 watt is kind of needed when you've got a high-end processor and graphics card. Fortunately, AMD is still very efficient, so we found under full load this processor is only pulling about 170 or 180 watts, and that's full load. The graphics card will pull about 450 watts, so 1000 watt is actually overkill. You can get away with an 850, and people are really exaggerating how much power you need. The case is a Lian Li PC011 Dynamic Evo tower case. We prefer using these ones over the XL because it is newer. It's got a nicer design in my opinion, and you don't get little blank spots where you know, underneath the fans there's just nothing going on. I like having this kind of case. It's the right size, airflow is great, you've got 10 fans in there, and the fans are actually the Lian Li Infinity fans. So as always, you probably can't see the proper effect on the camera from that angle, but I'm sure if Jeremy's thrown some cinematics on here, you can see the infinity edge effect around the side of the fan. You can see it's also kind of like a mix between SL120 fans and AL120 fans. Now speaking of LEDs, we have got the Strimer cables on here. You can see just here, that's what we've got for the graphics card. And this is about as neat as it gets when you've got a 4090 or a 3090 Ti. Sometimes with a 3090 Ti, you can fold this onto itself a little bit more, but with the 4090, it's a very rigid connector just here. And believe it or not, these cables are actually rated to 30 pull in and pull out. That sounds a bit weird, but that's what they do. They rate it to 30 in and out. So you don't want to pull this cable out too many times. It's a very rigid cable and you don't want to pull it out because it will start bending things. So we like to keep it in there, and I don't want to pull it out too many times. So we've got this cable here hanging off the graphics card. If we were to take the graphics card out for postage, we're going to unplug these 4 cables just here and then send it with this still plugged into the graphics card, and that saves us from that 30 in and out situation that ZOTAC has mentioned on these 4 PCI Express power connectors. But at the end of the day, we managed to get Strimer cables working with a 4090. It looks really cool. This thing's packed with RGB. It can't really get much better, and I'm really excited to show off a Ryzen 9 7000 series with an RTX 4090. So in some later videos, we're going to show you how these graphics cards and processors perform. The secret is, at the minute, the 7900X is a monster of a processor, and you're going to be able to play any game you want at maximum settings and no issue at all, and you already could do that on the 5000 series. So this is just basically a situation where you've got so much headroom that you can keep this exact same PC for a long time, and it is, you know, new AM5, so we're going to expect like the 8000 series and probably even 9000 series to work on this same motherboard. And all you'll do down the track is swap this graphics card for something else, a 5090, 6090, whatever comes out in the future in the next 4 or 5 years. And if you want a completely custom PC, call 1300-689-782 or go to cataclysm.com.au, click on 100% custom right at the top of the page, fill in the form, and I'll build a custom PC just for you.